and like a month ago, and it's finally told them that they have to purchase it.
Let's see here. Jared, what do you have to say for yourself? All ready to go when I am. Okay.
Well, that weekly reader is gone. We're the old weekly reader.
Yeah.
We peeled off the 25 copies, the little newspapers, probably remember when they were a kid.
All ready to go. jcwestler@gmail.com.
Got a little harder as the year went on.
There he is. Yeah, I just saw the. Oh, that sounds better. Oh, there we go.
Hey,
okay. Hey, how's it going, Jared?
Fantastic.
Okay. Let me. There we go. So now you're big on the screen now. Let me turn the computer. All right. So Jared, this is our aptitude group. Jared.
Hey.
Okay. So Jared, last month. We looked at your article that you posted recently about sort of reclaiming some time for personalized learning. We looked at the portal you guys have developed, and we talked about some of the specific elements. We talked about the FedEx days. We talked about the Ed Camp, looked at the schedule and some of the other documents you had up there. One question I just have at the front end is sort of what was the impetus behind the change? You speak a little bit about that in your article, and so maybe just can we start there?
Yeah, I guess the best way to define it, I don't remember if I put in that article or not, was the faculty meeting model that we had was, to me, really broken. And it was that we have all these teachers of varied degrees. So from brand new teachers to some in our building at 35 years who all were forced into this room for an hour to hear the exact same onslaught of information. And they were no better than when they came in, when they walked out. And our principal used to use the policy, if you weren't there on the next day, you could come in for like 2 minutes and get a recap, and that was good enough to cover your requirement. And I had a really hard time swallowing telling professionals, if you miss an hour, you can make it up in 2 minutes. How do I justify the other 58 minutes I had the other one sit for the first day? So we looked at how we could use that time better. And in conversations with our faculty, we were noticing as a transition to SLOs with student learning objectives, as we transition to trying to find technology integration in a different way, we realized they needed to have very differentiated professional learning. And the only way to do that was to stop providing sit and get as our primary means of delivery and really start finding ways to figure out what they needed and who was best able to provide it and trying to pair them up with those models. And by the time we worked through that, we realized that a choice-based model was really what was best for our staff. We had so many differentiated ways we were going. It was best to give them multiple paths and let them find the answers that work for them.
Questions?
So what did they do? So where did you start first? What was the first thing to go and what was the first thing to come in?
The first thing to go was our faculty meeting time. Sometimes I've been lambasted for using the phrase, I killed faculty meetings, and I'm proud to have slayed them. But to me, it was a dragon that had to die. But simply going in and saying, we're going to take your hour away was not the answer, because they're not able to go from, we have an hour, they've been doing that for 30 years. And suddenly say it's gone didn't make sense. So what we did is we started with, 45 minutes, say, of faculty meeting time was the old way, and the last 15 minutes, get together with your department and talk about one thing that you've done this week that helped the student learn. And then a month later, we might make it 30 minutes for us and 30 minutes for them. So by the end of the year, they got to their last meeting. We had them for 3 minutes or so with us. Thanks, guys. You have the entire time to go back to your room with your department and really talk about what you're doing with kids. So we built this collaborative idea because one of the things about being a high school is that collaboration is not the norm. It's not elementary where teachers work in teams. It's not middle school where you're still developing a little bit. They all go to their classroom, shut the door in their isolation as teachers. So we had to teach them it's okay to talk in groups about things other than policy gripes, the pay cut you're taking, the lack of an increase. All that politics stuff isn't your time together. You can talk about kids in a meaningful way. So we started with really killing the faculty meeting model here. And that was also our way of showing them we actually saw value in it. By getting rid of something that was kind of ours as administrators, we weren't taking something away from them. We were taking away our 1 hour a month we had to get in front and showing them if we value what we're going to do, we're giving up our stage moment. We're going to give up our stage time for you guys. And that was huge, again, to realize our transition wasn't just a small scale. We were looking at something much larger.
The teams have to report out afterwards about an outcome or what at least the topic was that they went. I mean, how do you know that they just weren't going and saying, let's just grade our paper?
One, we floated. So we have 3 administrators and we floated around to all those meetings and kind of hung out and engaged as best we could. The other piece is that our instructional leadership team, those department chairs said, can you give us a set of questions to start with? They weren't comfortable just going back and talking because they weren't used to it. So we developed a series of questions and then they would bring them to the next ILT meeting and share them out with the group, which was nice because a department chair was able to hear what another one said and we heard it 3 or 4 times around the table. Now it's a school issue. Or if we heard a need, now it's a school need. So we let them kind of build it together, but they did report back what they had talked about. And us floating around, you learn real quick which departments you had to get into first, or it would slip into, we're going to grade our papers. To be really honest, if they were grading papers, it was no different than their faculty meeting. They used to sit 3 feet from our principal and grade papers and play cards while he was talking.
Wow.
And that to me was like, I sat in my first one and almost had a coronary in the back of the room. Like, your boss is 3 feet away and you're on your phone texting the card game and the other one's right there grading papers. So we would go in those rooms. And if they did, we afterwards said, hey, what'd you learn in the meeting today? Well, okay, next time don't grade your papers during the conversations. So yeah, there were some checks and balances in. If I said we had it perfect, I'd be lying. We've still worked out some checks and balances for even next year and we're 4 years in. But it's the accountability piece, and that's where it did fall into us.
Did you collect feedback along the way so you could refine?
Yep.
What did that look like?
First thing is to understand that when we did this, we didn't tell them we were making a big change. One of the things that I'm a big proponent of is that telling someone you're going to make a radical change in a system they're used to causes consternation, and that's just not good. So they came back about 3.5 years ago from their summer, and they had a PD moment with about 40 minutes with me where I explained to each group in a small session, it's like 4 total sessions. Here's what we're doing now. And all it was we're going to ask you guys these expectations. Be owners of your learning. We want to give you some voice in what you do. We need you to be more collaborative. And we had our goals as administrators match theirs from a leadership standpoint. So we didn't tell them we were building what we're at now. It's taken this 3+ years to get to the system we're at now. And as I just said to my principal this morning, I'm really proud in May of 2015 to look ahead or look back 3+ years and say, this is what we envisioned. And they had no clue we were getting there. Because as we moved, we also didn't want to have something fail, because in our building, failure equates to we don't do it anymore. So we were trying to change that culture and show them it's okay, learning's a process. So along the way, we would gather feedback from the instructional leaders. We would talk in SLO conferences, eval conferences with teachers. When we go in the classroom for observations, bringing up how we can help them grow. We did informal surveys twice a year for the first 2 years. And then this year we did a much more formalized version of that. And then this year we also did a professional learning team who met this spring, now that we've kind of put everything in place, and looked back and said, here's the strengths, here's where we still need to grow. And we've developed a professional learning plan, which if you go to our website now, our professional learning plan is up for next year already. It includes our vision, our documentation, our cycle for learning, our 4 non-negotiables in terms of cultural building blocks, and then it has every action we put in place, like a school improvement plan for next year, just about professional learning. And that came from all those feedback elements over the years. And as we heard them say things, we tweaked it. For example, if you looked at our model back in July, you would have seen we had a credit model. So we were telling teachers 15 credits per year. And in around mid-July, I had a nice chat with Tom Murray and Jeff Zoll at a conference. And Tom pulled me aside and said, get rid of your credits. It's going to kill you. He said, if you bring someone in and you tell them they have 9 credits. In October, she gets 9. She puts it on your desk. What are you going to tell her to do the rest of the year? She already met her goal for the year. You can't tell her she has to do more learning. There's nothing to motivate her. She did her 9. She's not wrong. So we cut the credits before we ever launched it. And that has paid huge dividends. But that came also from feedback from our staff. And we started to talk about that last spring. They were really hesitant on the credits and we weren't comfortable. And that was the last piece with Tom and Jeff that kind of said, okay, we need to get away from it. I will say a school down the road from us took our model. We told them it's process, it takes time. They literally copied our webpage verbatim, moved it over to their school and thought they could just put it in place, and it fell apart within 2 to 3 months because they hadn't built that underlying structure where the teachers gave feedback and saw the model adjusting to their needs. So that feedback was really important. And it, again, we didn't tell them where we were going. We gave them hints, but their feedback was important because we were using that to determine if our next step was really the right one or not. And we were tweaking our vision as we moved along based on what they showed us they needed.
Lord?
What was the prep that people did before the meetings? Was it only your leadership team that got together and talked about questions, or was there an agenda that was set out the day before so people could think about the topic and the questions?
Are you talking about when we gave them questions to go back and do their collaborative discussions?
Yes.
Yeah, what we would do is our ILT, our instructional leadership team, meets once a month. And we would schedule that typically a week before the faculty meeting, because that way the ILTs got a little heads up if anything was going to change or new policies were coming down the line. They liked having the head up. So we would give them the ILTs the questions a week ahead of time, and they could either choose to do nothing with it or they could send it out to their teachers. In our building, they send everything we give them out almost immediately. So a lot of those questions were ruminating throughout the building. Sometimes we actually got feedback, that question makes no sense. What are you really asking from us? And we would actually email out a blast to the leaders then, hey, that question, forget it. Here's what we really want you to discuss. Or we'd hear a topic at ILT and say, time out. What we gave you is not right. Testing's a big issue. Park was going to take up something like 123 days of 180 in our school 2 years ago. And so with all that testing, that became a hot issue with them. We said, time out, go back and talk about how we can make testing work within our structure and still have kids learning and not be testing nonstop. So we also use their feedback sometimes to say, time out, you guys need to, you know what you need to talk about. So yeah, they saw it a week ahead of time. What they chose to do with it was them, but most of them did send it back out.
So you said you sort of gradually released time from that 1 hour block initially. Have you over time recaptured additional time to expand the amount of time available to teachers to pursue sort of personalized learning?
No, because we don't really require the hour. Our contract, we're really fortunate. Our union contract says we have 1 hour of professional meeting time a month that we can hold them for. Doesn't say faculty meeting, it says IE faculty meeting. So to me, that's an example. And so what we told them on day one was raise your hand the first week of school if you've already spent an hour more than your work time doing something for your school. Everyone's hand, of course, shoots up. No one works the 7.5 or 8 hour days. I said, so you've done your hour for the month of August. I'm not worried about your hour. Your hour's covered in the extra stuff you're doing outside of school for your kids and for the building. I want you to focus on professional learning. Your goal is to get better throughout the year. So we really took the limit off of time because I had a number of teachers coming through the door to start going, so I did only 45 minutes this month. No, I don't care about your other 15 because next month you're probably gonna do 2 hours. I have a coach who does soccer. For those 3 months, you're not doing a lot of professional learning because you're busy coaching every day after school. That's a form of professional learning. But I also expect you to step it up after soccer season and get involved more. So it's really designed to be flexible to their learning, and every learner learns at a different pace. We have one group that's in a cohort that meets for 6 hours a month for the state of Maryland for a formative assessment group. We have some groups that meet for like 12 minutes a month for their PLC, but they're smaller in number and their conversations are ongoing. That time to come together is just to share resources. So it looks very different for everybody. But yeah, we really haven't, that time's just kind of floating around out there. If you told me where it went, to be honest, right now, I don't really know. It was our trade-off with them.
What about is your teacher evaluation system? Have you been able to align it with this new model? Like, can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know what model of evaluation do you guys use down there?
It's basically SMART goals, sort
Okay.
of beginning, middle, end of the year.
We live under the Danielson framework.
Okay.
Which is those 4 domains. And one of the hardest things for our teachers was what's domain 4, professional development and learning. They really struggled with what that meant. They used to bring in a box that was, what professional activities you've done this year, what courses have you taken, where do you want to grow, and what have you done to continue growing? And that was their matrix. And some of them still bring it in because it's what they're used to. We've really tried to tie the evaluations now to tell me what you need to get better. So a teacher comes in and their evaluation might have them proficient or above in everything. That's not uncommon here. We have some rock star teachers for whom proficient is the norm. Well, where do I grow? I'm already proficient. Well, let's talk about the categories where you're not distinguished. So you're proficient in planning and you're proficient in creating a classroom culture, but your instruction's all proficient. So you've built the blocks to do something great, but you haven't quite pushed it across the line. We really use that conversation to tailor their professional learning. They actually create an individualized learning plan for our district every year as a part of their process. We're refining that for our teachers for this year to be more focused on pick 3 things that you want to get better at next year based on your evaluation, and then 2 things that you'd like to get better at that you just want to improve. We're also launching a new instructional coach model next year. So that's going to change a little bit of how we're able to deliver that service. But yeah, the eval is really a big piece in how we drive identifying need. We want them to pick what they want. Let's be fair. Some people will pick what they already know just because it's easy or it's comfortable. We want them to stretch. So that's our opportunity. I had a teacher who's really great in the classroom tell me, I don't do technology because I don't really understand it and I don't need to. That's not a good reason. So let's find a way to get you the technology help next year to get better and feel comfortable and grow. So yeah, it's really a piece of what we're using now.
Okay. So we've read a little bit about sort of FedEx Day, where the concept is you deliver. Can you sort of mechanisms you have in place for sort of spreading the pockets of excellence that arise in different parts of the building around so that they reach the group?
We are very, very good at highlighting and sharing in our building. In fact, we've been sometimes called in our district a PR machine because we share everything. And that's one thing that, may or may not be popular in education. Some people make an idea and they say, well, we'll give it to you, but it's going to cost you $980 plus the PD session. And I'm adamant, if we have a good idea that helps kids, you don't hold it, you share it. So we've put everything out there. Our whole technology program, we are the most tech forward school in our district. We have a full technology website for our parents, students, and staff that has all of our technology resources. Our RSVP program, same thing. We have a whole site for it. Next year, some of those other programs that are teacher-driven a little bit more than those will be starting to launch their own portal. So we have a special ed, I don't want to call it a resource room. It's more like an intensive instructional area. And it's a program they created on FedEx Day. The special ed department and IAs got together with some teachers and spent all day building a brand new program to support special ed students. And it's been in place now for about 2.5 years, and it's gotten us phenomenal results. We've seen test scores increase. It used to be like 5 or 10 per student. They're getting 60 to 80 point gains by doing this model. So I'd like them next year. They've been challenged to create a way to share that with the world and create the portal so a parent knows what their kid's doing in there. They can see what the program is. So we've been very visible in what we do. FedEx Day by nature is you produce it, but you also have to share it. So the other thing is finding Tech Tuesdays, 10-minute Tuesdays, finding opportunities where when you have a teacher that's doing something that's a rock star moment, they're in that garage band where no one else hears them. You have an obligation to pull them out of the garage once in a while and let them hear their sound. And so for us, we try to find as many ways as possible. They're only informal, they're voluntary, but it's amazing when you tell a teacher, you're here till 2:45, from 2:30 to 2:40, so-and-so's in the media center sharing how to use Kahoot with your kids. How many will show up voluntarily because that 10 minutes they know might make them better? And once they hear word of mouth spread, that's another thing. 5 people might attend the session, but 50 end up using it because they all talk about it and they say, can I hear? Can I hear? And they create their own little PLC for like a month where they're just sharing with each other. And we're cool with that because the idea is growing and it's organic.
Mm-hmm. You've given us some advice already because it's been a 4-year process for you. And basically, we should not copy your website and just drop the model.
Especially leaving our name in the middle of the statement.
Yeah, right. We should at least change the name. But advice for a school that is at the beginning of the continuum. I told you, based on the conversation we had in here about your school, we just had our first ed camp. So we've had our first taste of that style of professional learning. What advice would you have for us as we sort of start on this?
Actually, I'm going to do something on the screen real fast. Let's see if it shows up. Hopefully this shares properly. Maybe. Are y'all seeing my lovely PDF?
Professional Learning Action Plan. I see it.
All right, good. You can see it. I'm actually going to shrink that window down so I can pull it up. There it goes. All right. So that's what you're seeing. So one thing I will share, this is the plan that we just approved last week. We identified the process in there, and that was really important to us, is what's the process for a staff member for a professional learning opportunity. So one of the things I would look at as a team is what are you going to look like from start to finish in a PD opportunity? What is professional learning going to look like for a singular activity or a singular moment? And, we talk about identifying the need, developing and communicating the opportunity, but then the big one is facilitate, get the reflection, assess, and then go back into that cycle. It's continual. So figure out the process that works for you. The other piece is that we really sat down and talked about this from a cultural standpoint. In fact, next month, so the June issue of the Journal of Staff Development from Learning Forward, there's an article that I wrote in there about how we built our professional learning culture. So it's not focused on the concepts in terms of opportunities as much as it is the cultural build. And it talks about these 4 things. And that's something that was really important to us. What are the things that we want in every professional learning moment? And as a staff, we all agree these are the 4 things that we feel are most important to us. So every opportunity, no matter what it is, should have this type of system built into it. The top 2 are simply the opportunities. The bottom 2 are how we assess them. And so those all play into each other. And I'll be very honest, my biggest word of advice to most people is focusing right there on that student learning component. Because if you don't have student learning as the key, you're going to run into some issues really defining the why. Everything we do as a professional learning should go back to how our kids learn. So focus on the students, focus on that component, focus on student learning, and things tend to kind of handle themselves. But really look at what is the start to finish for a professional learning opportunity in your school now, and what do you want it to look like? And then also think about what capacities do you have? What's your building got that's really strong? If you guys are the master collaborators, start building off your collaboration. If you guys are really good at autonomy, build off autonomy. Figure out what you're good at and start there, because it's going to take longer to develop those other skills. Like us, autonomy was hard. Choice was hard for our teachers. They like to be told what to do and to tell them, you figure it out. That's not what we do. So we started with collaboration, the thing they were best at, and we built to the thing they had the least capability for. And that way you're building their foundations.
Okay. Start from a position of strength. Any other questions? Yeah, Lori. Yep.
So when do you meet as a whole staff so that you have that community as a whole staff besides just like some people coming to Kahoot or wherever?
You killed them. The dragon is dead.
I got to go like this. I'll be very honest on this one. The biggest bone of contention with our staff is that we took away their staff time. I ask them when they say it, they say, well, we used to get together. I said, but my job wasn't to provide you fun time. Those faculty meetings were supposed to be professional learning. Did you feel any better when you left it in terms of your learning? Were you a better professional? Well, of course not. But I got to see my fellow teachers. Okay, so you want the social piece. And I battled for 2 years with, that's not my job to build professional learning that makes you socially happy. And I changed my mind last year because I realized that their social emotional well-being as a faculty was playing into the ability for professional learning to work. Yeah. And so we started next year, we just had our professional learning team say, how do we do it? We have something called Poor Friday, which we used to get paid every other Friday. So on the off Friday, a department would bring in food in the morning and we'd all kind of go and share it. It turned into nothing but a donut fest. But hey, it worked. And they changed our pay scale the way they do it in the past couple of years to twice a month. So Poor Friday no longer really exists. We have it, but it's really poor. So that's been something the faculty's also wanted. So what we started next year, we'll launch what we call monthly meetups. We're going to provide them one after school, one afternoon. They're going to rotate around throughout the year based on the season. And it's going to be like we have a cafeteria manager who makes awesome scones. She'll make her raspberry white chocolate scones. It's voluntary. If you want to come in and hang out in the morning as a faculty, we're going to have scones for you. You guys can talk, see each other, hang out. We're going to present our Lions Roar Award then. It's 15 minutes, but at least they got to see each other. Yeah. We also just did an ice cream social to kick off the first monthly meetup so they could see what it would look like. We told them you have 15 minutes, here's the ice cream, and they were still there an hour and 20 minutes later because they just wanted to sit together and talk. But that's our way of giving them the social connection. And a lot of them end up talking about school issues. So I'm cool with that. But I also don't want to sacrifice the professional learning time with the social time because that's where they were sitting there grading papers, texting each other. That's all it was to them. And I had to really work hard to break that cultural mindset because that's what they've done here for 30 plus years. Now it's time to put it back in because it was really missing. And I had my own little reflection moment there and learned social matters. I'm not a social person, so all good. I'm a nerd.
All right, Jared, I want to be respectful of your time, but we cannot thank you enough. Very informative, and we'll keep an eye out for that. You said the article's in Learning Forward, right?
Yeah, the Journal of Staff Development in June. So coming out in about a week or two, there's an article on how we built our professional learning culture. And there should be another one coming out in, I believe, Principal Leadership in September, talking a little bit about how to create a personalized learning environment. So lots of stuff coming from us. And if you guys look at our website, we're adding stuff now as we update our professional learning plan for next year. Okay. If you have questions about anything, feel free to shoot me emails, tweets, whatever, and I'll gladly answer it as best I can. All right. Feel free to steal stuff. Just make sure you take liberty out of it.
Just take the... All right. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, guys. Adios.